Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Intuitive Catalyst podcast. I'm Leilani, your host, and today we are joined with the brilliant Elizabeth Rell. Elizabeth, or the spiritual investor, who's been heard on Behind the Human, The Prosperity Show, and Mindful Money, is a high-level wealth strategist and former energy trader who connects the energy of money with real finance and investing. She guides growth-minded individuals to overcome their limiting beliefs about money and become confident investors with consistent passive income so that they have more time and energy to focus on what truly lights them up. And okay, this was such a vulnerable episode for me, y'all. So I know who I am. I know that I am meant to heal in public. It's why I wrote a book in real time about my spiritual awakening. I know who I am. And this episode was the most I've ever stretched into that. So you'll see Elizabeth is so good at what she does. And you'll see the moments where she is pushing me to heal parts of my money wound as we were going through the episode. It was so wild, y'all. I cannot wait for you to listen to this. I'm also very nervous about putting this out into the world. But again, I know who I am. I know that I am meant to set an example to heal in public and to be vulnerable in these ways. And I am just so grateful for Elizabeth and the ways that she and I kind of like co-signed this energetic episode. I mean, it's so beautiful. And we didn't know ahead of time. It just kind of happened. And so I can't wait for you to listen. I encourage you to listen to the end because there is so much wisdom that Elizabeth shares with us, and I don't want you to miss a thing. So without further ado, I welcome Elizabeth Rell onto the podcast. Hi, Elizabeth. Thank you so much for being here. We're so grateful to have you on today.
Thank you. I'm really, really excited about being here.
So, Elizabeth, I have been following your journey for a while. I got connected to you through my friend Josette LeBlanc, who is a part of your cohort. And I attended one of your money, I don't even know what to call it, like money activation. I don't know exactly what to call it, but I came out of that feeling like, yeah. So tell us a little bit about your journey. I know that you used to be in corporate, like an executive. Just tell us a little bit about how did you arrive here to the work that you're doing?
By accident, but not by accident, right? This ends up happening to us where I think we kind of have this universal, like almost like we're on the rails universally, and then we just take ourselves on and off. But I do feel like there's some kind of like silent, hand that's directing us with this. And I was supposed to be doing this. I was supposed to be talking to people about money, specifically spiritual people about money, because I think it is a big point of stuckness, contention, whatever you want to say. And I think, it's my goal, like, what kind of world can I help create if the people with the greatest consciousness are the ones that hold the majority of the money? And so that is my mission. But sometimes we have to kind of like build our foundation ourselves first before we can get out there and help other people. And I think sometimes people feel maybe even like a little guilty about that, but building wealth is a form of self-love. And I've always fundamentally understood that. I've never had guilt and shame or regret or anything like that about money. Even as a child, I was like quite open and free with it. So when I became an energy trader when I was in my early 30s, it was a great job, but it was kind of like living in the matrix. So I would get into the elevator in the mornings, like you have the big marble floor. This is in San Diego, and then you get in the elevator and the high security badge, you go up to the floor, and then I would just be there for 12 hours with a bunch of other people that I really enjoyed, but like that was our whole life, was the job. And I was okay with that, but I knew that I didn't want to do that forever. But I also didn't want to go down to $0 and just quit and leave that. So I decided to buy my way out of it. So it's like I stepped into the responsibility of creating my new world, which I think we're always creating our world. And I thought it was going to take me 10 years. It didn't take me quite 10 years. And then when I left there, I had, well, a couple of things that happened to me. Number one, I had covered my cost of living, which was quite low at the time. I covered my cost of living and I finished out my retirement, right? So I had enough and I knew that it was going to exponentially grow to the point that I needed it. So that was really my definition of financial freedom. And I encourage everybody to establish your own. Don't listen to anyone else. What will make you feel at ease with money? What is that goal? And another thing that happened is that about partway into that journey, so I was like mid 30s, I got really depressed and I was, going out, I was drinking wine. I'd go out and meet people and drink wine. I'd go to the happy hour. I was married at the time, but I just wasn't like, I wasn't happy with my life.
Mm.
And I thought, okay, well, I can't continue to do this because when we make it about just money, it doesn't connect with us, doesn't connect with our
Mhm.
heart. And so around that time, an Indian guy joined the trading floor, and he and I became fast friends, and we had the same sense of humor. And it was a win-win situation because he was bringing all of the Hindu texts over from, he'd grew up in an ashram, and he was teaching me all of these, like the spiritual principles. And I'm talking about on a daily basis, sometimes
Wow.
hourly basis. And I was helping him and his wife and his son integrate into what it's like to live in the US. And he felt very excluded, and he felt awkward, even like his accent and things like that. And so it was just like the perfect situation. And before I knew it, I had just naturally started combining these principles, these spiritual principles with money to the point where it then became my standard. Like I wasn't
Mm.
going to go out there and do anything or have any investments that weren't energetically connected to who I was because they had become one and the same. And that's effectively what I teach now is that, we're all expanding out here, and it's a great opportunity for you to call in more money if you invite your money into that expansion process. Rather than looking at money as something you need to do, it's actually an invite. And when you treat it that way, instead of the how and the to do being like something that's been on your list for a year that you've been avoiding, that you don't want to do, instead of it coming from that, things that you feel like you should do, the how really comes from the connection that you feel. It's kind of like when you're in a relationship and you feel you're like, having this great time and you're in this blissful moment, like you think of new ideas, it just comes through in the moment. And so how can we bring money into our life in that way? And once people do it, you never go back. You can't go back at that point.
Oh my gosh, there are so many threads. It's like we could pull on so many of them. The one that's coming through for me is what you just said about being in, I think like a love relationship is what you were describing, is like when you're in a relationship, a partnership, like a romantic love relationship, it's not uncommon, at least not for me, to be like, oh, there's a new business opportunity, or oh, here's someone who wants to invest in my company. And it's like, it's so interesting to me because I've been really sitting with the energy of abundance lately. And I think where people tend to get hung up on abundance is that it has to look like money. And like
Mm,
abundance is like like love energy and gaining new followers. If you have a social media presence that's tied to your company, like abundance is like lifting 5 more pounds. When I'm on this like weightlifting journey, it's like my body is feeling this much stronger. And so I think what I really love about what you said is that when you tap into the expansiveness of the energy of abundance, money has there's nowhere else for it to flow except to you, right? Because you're the openness that you're receiving. And something that you just said to me, which I am still sitting with before we started recording, was we were talking about travel. And you said the fact that I can like go to different places and like really have this beautiful relationship with the energies of the land that I'm navigating. You said, I think that speaks a lot to you being great at receiving. And I've been like receiving in every part of my life except money. for
Uh-huh.
the longest time. So your journey, I think this is really good for the listeners because your journey is one of like, let me get my wealth to a place where I feel like, okay, this is feeling good for me to transition to really focusing on whatever the next act that I am engaging in my life. And for me, it was like, I don't know, I don't have the nest egg. I don't have that safety net.
Mhm.
And the guidance I was getting was the universe was like, do it anyway. And
Mhm.
so I actually left my corporate job when I was 37.
Mhm.
I like retired from corporate with no money, basically like a 401k. And I experienced poverty for like I've experienced poverty as a child, but I hadn't experienced it as an adult until that moment. And so it's so interesting to see the universe guiding people in different ways, and that we get to engage in the ways that the universe and the energies that are around us are asking us or supporting us and engaging. And that's going to look different for every single person,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
It's just so beautiful. Yeah.
You said something really key, and I hope that this will maybe touch upon and help some of the listeners here. So thank you for sharing yourself and your story too, because that's what makes this so tangible and real.
Mhm.
Um, you said that you experienced poverty as a child,
Mhm.
and you experienced poverty after you left corporate.
Mhm.
Any idea why?
I think you're going to tell me.
Uh-huh.
Tell me, please.
Well, when we move into a new version of who we are, if
Mm.
it's a new version, we don't know that version and we have to get to know that version, right? What more often than not happens is that we go back to our comfort zone. And you don't
Wow.
want your comfort zone to be poverty, but there is some level, there is something subconsciously in you where that is your comfort zone because it was your
Mhm.
childhood. And but believe me, we're all experiencing something similar. So whenever I'll use myself, I'll throw myself on the table as well. So I just went through a divorce recently, and I also went back into some of my childhood stuff, which was the feeling of like making decisions on my own, but at the same time needing to be protected. And
Mm.
they were almost like opposing forces, but they're not. And I found myself out in the world, like just my comfort. I was convinced that I needed to find that again. So I was convinced that because I was very protected in my relationship, in my marriage. And I was convinced that that was part of my success. And so the new version of me now realizes that actually it's the opposite. In order for me to go higher, I have to stop hiding behind this illusion of needing to be protected.
Mm.
And so the new version, which I'm still going through this right now, is meeting that new version. And I have practices, I have to keep coming back to it on an ongoing basis. And that's where it really separates the people who are you truly wanting to have an impact out there? Because if you are, it's not about just setting a money goal and having a great marketing
Mhm.
plan. It's about, do you feel so strongly about it that you're willing to have a practice that you sometimes have to come back to moment by moment? Is it that important to you? Because if it is, then that also becomes your awakening as well. Like whatever we're here to do and give to the world, it just has its own subject, but it's just a vehicle. Like this is my awakening, teaching money and having conversations like this,
Mhm.
and even going through what I did, because if I didn't want to rise higher so that I can help millions of people and get this information in millions of people's hands, I wouldn't have that sort of like golden rope like pulling me so that I have this like natural incentive, if you will, to get to know that new person
Mm.
and behind the comfortable version. So hopefully that will help because everybody's got it.
Everybody's got it. And everybody who chooses to evolve into the next version, the higher consciousness version, however you want to describe it, the more ascended version, everyone's going to have to. I mean, I feel I'm like checking with my guides and they're all nodding. It's like, yes, we have to be able and willing to reckon with the comfortability that we're used to and
Mm,
to reckon with the fact that it cannot serve us in this evolved version. Um, I saw myself become a child again and like and come back into poverty. And you know what? I had to ask my dad for money. Like it was one of the most humbling moments, but it's like what source God, the universe was opening me to was like, can you receive? Because as a child, I wasn't able to receive. I
mhm.
did I would similar to you, like I had to protect myself from receiving because it was too painful as a child. And so like I had to learn how to open myself up. And then over time, it's like, oh, like abundance is coming and it just flows. And the more that I kind of reckoned with that shadow, and I call it the money wound because we have like different, the martyr wound, the time wound, money wound, like the places where we still experience scarcity. And for me, I had to like really reckon with my money wound. And I just messaged a friend before we started talking. And it was the first time I actually said this out loud. I was like, I fucking love money. I just do. Like, I love money and I love, like, I've been communing with the energies of money. And they're
Mhm.
so sweet and playful, and they find me in like really silly ways. They wanted me to buy a lottery ticket and I did, and I won $2 and they were like, yay. And I was like, okay, like it's just really cute and sweet and like fun. And like the energy of money is so oppressed in our realm. And to your point, like if people with higher consciousness had access and power, quote unquote, power around money, like how would our world shift with people with pure hearts, like actually being the ones investing, actually being the ones with that sort of like quote unquote power in our realm. So I just appreciate you. And even just like in preparing for this call, I was experiencing those shifts. It's amazing, like who you are.
Oh, thank you for that. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. So I saw you jotting some stuff down. I was curious if anything was coming up for you, if there's anything that feels like it's moving through you in this moment.
Yeah, well, some of it is, just it's really such an aha what you brought up about poverty,
Mm,
and how it's so easy for us to slip back into the comfortability, but I think that we don't recognize that it's the same because we're an adult and we're not supposed to be a kid anymore. But I think actually like the more evolved we get, the more we're able to see that we really do still have these kid-like qualities, and
mhm,
we're okay to be. It's like we're okay with that, but at the same time recognizing we don't want to be that anymore. So I think for you, and this is kind of something that came up, is that this, it can also be seen as evidence. So if you are going into that, then that is evidence that that's not the new version of you. And I think that's really what we're looking for here, because we have a lot of talk about like ego versus higher self, right? And like
mhm,
I think there's even like a narrative out there that like ego is bad, but in fact, ego is a departure from our authentic selves, but ego is guiding us, right?
mhm,
But I think the key is, can you tell the difference? And can you be aware enough when you are the difference, when you're in an upset, or when something doesn't go your way, or someone says something to you that offends you, or da da da, right? Can we be the observer in those moments? Because that is the version of you that's so powerful with money, because you never want to make money decisions from an emotional place. Like I talk about money neutrality, the greatest opening to money, right? So it's you can use the practice of the stuff we're talking about here to actually get better with money. But if you find yourself in a money cycle going back to the same thing, don't blame yourself or think that you're moving backwards. You're not. It's not a linear journey. In fact, there's a way that you can be thankful of it and go, thank you for showing me this.
Ah, okay, so we have to talk about money neutrality. So for those folks who are not familiar with your work, can you tell us what that means to you and how can we cultivate that? Like how do we start that journey?
Yeah, well, it's very similar to, you know, let's say that we're having a conversation. I use a lot of like comparisons to relationships. Like, so let's say we're having a conversation, we're in a relationship and we are either in the past, so we are kind of bringing up something that we've experienced before, and we might be bringing it up because we need someone to change, we need someone to do something, we need something different, right? Well, what happens is in that moment, you might feel like you're sort of constructing this new world and moving forward, but really there is a level of resistance to that because you're needing something. On the flip side of it, you can be future creating and you can be saying, okay, well, if you would see your potential, or if you would just, go to bed earlier and you would sleep better or whatever. We're future creating and we think we're being so helpful because, we do care about these people. But what we're doing is we're trying to tell, no one likes to be told what to do. And so then again, we're operating within a level of resistance. Um, the most powerful relationships, and you see this a lot actually with best friends, where and I just was talking to my team about it this morning because they do this for me. Like, if you can continue to hold like that higher version of someone and you see them as that version, even when they're showing up broken, then that's like a true connection, like a true opening, right? And sometimes you can do that, and that causes you to not even need as much from them. That causes you to not have as much resistance yourself. What you're doing is you're creating like an unconditional relationship in that. And the flow of love, because everything goes back to love, the flow of love in that relationship, which can show up as consideration, lots of different things, right? Um, it's free flow. And so then that abundance, because you mentioned money's and everything is abundance, right? That we want, that comes to us. So it's like, then you see that. So if you apply that to money, then if you're not in a relationship where you are future creating with your money going, I need you to come to me in a certain amount. I need you to bring me this job. I need you to do da 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 da. And you're also not in regret with your money and you're not having this conversation with yourself about what you should have done. Um, then what you do is you create an open channel connection to money and you go out into the world with this open connection, and it's just like you walking into a room, because that's really what we're doing. We're always surrounded by opportunity. It's just like you walking into a room being the creative, I have everything to give, I'm just here to enjoy, da da da. And that's what money is attracted to. And so money neutrality is the void. Money neutrality is actually what draws it in. It's like the black hole. It's like energy goes from one node of a battery to the other. And so it's not actually your job to go out there and make money. It's your job to actually create the environment where money comes to you. And that's the new paradigm. And a lot of people are doing that now. But I think that is going to be our norm in the future. Like this conversation we're having now, it won't even need to be had because so many people will be already doing it.
Oh my gosh, it's so beautiful the way that you use relationships to draw parallels to the money journey because so many of us know what it's like to have a connection, a friendship, a partnership, a love partnership. And yet, like for some reason, we haven't made that connection to money because that's really what it is. Like we are contracting, we are signing contracts with the energy of abundance, with the energy of money at all times. And what was coming up for me again, because I see so much in terms of like scarcity and abundance. even you're with what you were describing about a partner, it's like if we're constantly looking for the ways that they are lacking, like that's such a scarcity move. That's such a scarcity mindset. And more often than not, that's only going to piss them off and make them feel like not enough. Like you're basically like hanging out in that low vibration of scarcity and lack, and I'm not getting enough, and I'm feeling victimized. And that is what it feels like a lot of times to be in the survival, poverty, scarcity place. And that's not to negate all of the socioeconomic, racial factors with wealth and scarcity and poverty. It's not to negate all of that, but it is to say that there's something at play here with the energies of scarcity and abundance. And there are some people who have bigger hurdles to receive money and to be in this neutral space with money. And yet it is possible. It is possible.
Well, it's not only possible, it's like, um, I really think that's the path forward for people if they want to wake up, because money's just like anything else. It's just a mirror. It's just showing you in a different form. Going back to the relationship thing. So like you show up in a relationship and you need someone to do something to make you feel better, right? Well, it's always 100% of the time that thing that you need from them is what you're not giving yourself.
Totally.
And so if you step into the responsibility to either give it to yourself, or maybe you can't even give it to yourself if you're still in the confines of that relationship. And then you say, hey, I need to step back from this, or I need to take some space, or I need to, in other words, like when we do that, we change everything. And then what ends up happening, of course, is we go back into the relationship perhaps, and we don't need that thing. And then all of a sudden the other areas of the relationships clears up as well, because typically we'll have like, one to two dominant things that kind of guides the patterns of every relationship, right? And ironically, one of those is typically money. It's usually money and sex. It's like, that's what people argue over, right?
Mm.
And so that there's neediness in money and there's neediness in sex. And so it's no accident that we are having so many issues with it. And clearing up money in a relationship is one of the biggest things that you can do to improve the overall relationship, because I think that so many other things are tied to it.
This is so your ability to speak to just all of the different I mean, it's so accessible, and I just appreciate you so much for being here. Oh my gosh. Yeah, okay. So let's switch to investing, because I feel like that is such a giant message that you convey to us all. The power of investing itself and having passive income. I believe you call it passive income. So why does that matter for somebody who's like, I'm a shaman, I'm making money. I would always love to have more abundance so that I can be a good steward and conduit for like pouring into and investing in businesses and that I believe in. So why does investing matter in your opinion for folks who are seeking higher consciousness?
Well, I think whatever you're doing, let's just use the example of a shaman. So, and you can tell me, but a shaman is going to, first and foremost, they're going to value the gifts that are flowing through them, right? And that's going to be just, huge. They're also going to value what type of wisdom can I tap into out there in order to expand upon this and have a greater impact in the world, right? And that's something that you really don't have to convince those people of, right? That's just something that you do. So
Right.
it's within the value system. What's also within the value system of a lot of spiritual people is that money isn't something that is actually at that same level. Yet, money is just as good of a support system, equally important as a support system. Because if you don't have money, then you have no choice but to somewhat carry a lack scarcity vibe, because you still have to pay the bills. That's the world that we chose to come into. And so what we have to do is we have to stop saying money's evil and having this like argument with money. We have to sort of bypass that and go, what is our responsibility here? If you are a shaman, your responsibility is to be an open channel as much as possible. If you know that you need money, just like you know you need to keep up with your health, just like you know that you need to eat properly, just like you know you need to drink water, that's part of your responsibility. It is part of your responsibility to be wealthy. And I think that if spiritual people would take that on and let that be equivocal, then it wouldn't be such an uphill battle for them to call money in.
Oh my gosh. So I feel like you're activating me as we're having this conversation. Uh, so what comes up for me as I hear you say that is there's so many of us spiritual folks who are awakening and seeing kind of like, okay, there's the matrix and it's like it's hard and I can separate myself from it and all of this, which isn't actually true. Like we have to in many ways until we arrive at a different place where maybe this conversation is irrelevant, we have to consider that, like you said, we chose to come here. We chose to come to a place where the matrix is still, I would say it's not so much alive and well. It is beginning. We're seeing the cracks in it, and yet it's still a part of our experience. But I think where a lot of spiritual folks get hung up is like I hear this a lot as I'm like channeling, because I channel for our collective a lot, and I hear like, I hate it here. I hate it here. I hate this world. I hate seeing what's happening in Palestine. I hate seeing what's happening in the Congo. I hate seeing the politics. Um, and this resistance to like actually being in the experience we chose this world, as hard as it can be at times, as difficult as it is to navigate, we chose this. And in order to create the shift that we want to create, we have to understand, what does it actually mean for us to engage with it in ways that continue to expand whatever it is that we're meant to do here and expand our spirits. And so for me, it's like when I think of why I was going to say need money, but really it's like, why do I desire? Like why do I magnetize money? Like, what does that do for me? And for me, I'm like, similar to your example, it's like, okay, well, if I want to be able to sit down and have a channeled session and do something for the collective or for a client or whatever, I need to be in a sense of ease. Like my nervous system has to be at a place where those messages will come through easily. And I don't know many energies that give me more ease than knowing I don't have to worry about where rent is coming from or how I'm going to pay for my kids' like childcare. So for me, it's about ease. And then we were talking about travel right before this. It's like, I know that a giant part of my purpose is to visit Egypt for some reason, Paris. I have to go to Bali. I have to go to Fiji. And there's a reason for this. And money is the conduit through which I'm able to experience what I'm meant to experience and to heal what I'm meant to heal. And so for me, it's like, if I am truly honest with myself, I want to understand the matrix in a way. Like, I want to understand investing in a way, whatever constructs we have to grow our passive wealth. I want to understand that in a way that creates ease for me so that I can fulfill my purpose. So I
Mm-hmm.
really appreciate that. That's just like, it's amazing that you're doing that work.
Thank you. Well, I mean, let's do that. Let's maybe we can help some people actually build into that, right here and now, if you want to do that. Like,
Yes.
I think you mentioned travel, you mentioned childcare, you mentioned like all of these things. And you can either say this out loud or you can just bring it up in your mind, but what is a monthly amount that you're like, God, if I had that amount, I'd have that point of ease. Like I'd still need to look at the account and all that, but I wouldn't really worry if the account's getting low and I'd have money to invest and expand. Like, I mean, does a number come up for you monthly on that?
It's so high. It feels high to
Okay.
me
What is it?
because I live in Seattle, y'all. So I
Yeah.
would like to own a home
Uh-huh.
very soon. And I actually know I need to be at the ocean. So I'm like, I want to own a home. So the amount for me in this moment, and I'm just gonna say it, is like 20 grand. Like I would love to be making 20 grand a month of income
Mhm.
in order to have the space that I need to do the things that the universe is calling me toward and to save for my kids' college and all of the things, and to continue to invest in the businesses that I believe are led by higher consciousness beings, earth angels, star seeds, light workers. Like that's my number.
Okay. So, so we talked about earlier, we said, okay, we have like, the current version of us or like the child version of us, right? And then we have like the new version of us. So let's just
Mm.
reframe this and I'll tell you the difference between just the example that you just gave. So when you answered that as the child version,
I
which is
know.
version, right?
I
And
felt that.
what did you say
I said
that
it was high.
okay, he said it was high,
It
right?
wasn't neutral.
No, and it's really funny because like it's so relative because then when you said 20, I was like, oh God, you said that was high. So even I'm like thinking, I'm superimposing on that, right?
Right.
Um, and okay, so that's the one thing, right? And that's the way we go out into the world. So it's no wonder, right?
Hmm.
That we're even having this conversation, right? So it's like, and I do this for myself too. I have these same conversations with myself. So don't think that I'm like, because I'm constantly wanting to rise to different levels as well. So, okay, so the difference would be, um, imagine if suddenly there was like this light beam that came down and it just filled your whole body. It was just like it kind of restarted you. And imagine that you had no past, like your past was completely erased. And this light beam said there is no difference in 30K, 300,000K, 3 million.
Hmm.
There's no difference. It's all ones and zeros. It's all just energy. All you have to do is choose what you are responsible for, and you are playing at such a high level that you must choose at that your level of responsibility in equal match vibrationally to the level that you are playing at spiritually. What number would you choose?
It's way higher than 20K a month.
What is it?
Do you want an actual number?
Mhm. What number matches where the level you're playing at spiritually? Because you know that.
Honestly, it's so fucking high.
Okay, what is it?
I'm saying that from a place of like, I know spiritually I'm playing very high. And this is kind of the last bit, um, you know, that I am a divine redistributor of wealth. I know that.
Hey, don't explain this. Just go
Okay.
deeper. Yes, that's the child version.
It
Want
is.
needing to explain it, needing to set this page
Yeah.
up. You're fluffing the situation right now, which is what kids do.
It's so interesting. Like I'm seeing myself signing contracts and like monthly. It's like it feels so right. It's like it's hundreds of thousands of dollars a month.
What's the number? You have a number.
I see 500K a
Okay,
month.
great. Okay, perfect. Perfect. Perfect.
What? It's so cool.
Perfect. Okay. So if you made in that moment a contractual agreement with that light beam, with the universe,
Mm.
that you will allow in money at the same level as you're playing spiritually, then you would, in that moment, you would also be taking on a responsibility. It's kind of like if they said, okay, you're the chosen one, Leilani, we're going to give you the information. You're the chosen one. You're going to have to manage your energy in a different way. You're going to have to, your version of time right now goes out the window. You might have to do something different than you thought. You might have to battle your demons with the amount of time you spend with your kids, things like that. You will
Mhm.
have to do that. Are you ready for your high level training? If you were to say yes to all of this, then
Yes.
you would be operating from now on as the new version of yourself, and everything that you
Wow.
do energetically would be going back to, I have a responsibility to call in $500,000 a month. And you would be where you would be a year from now would be astronomical. Even if you weren't at the 500 yet, it would be so much further ahead than the version that we started with here. But you have to take it on like it is law.
Yeah. It's a job. It literally feels like I just got hired
Mhm.
for a job that the universe was interviewing me for. Like that's how it feels. And it's
Good.
so cool. Like it feels like it's an honor. And
It's an honor.
I
It is
think
an
that,
honor.
yeah. And I think that so many listeners, certainly I know this for myself, and this is something I've had to work through, is responsibility often has felt crushing. Like I have to sacrifice pieces of my spirit because people are relying on me or whomever is relying on me. And this job feels like exciting. Like it's one of those jobs, it's like, oh my God, I just got my dream job and
Mhm.
like this is it just it's such a different energy, so thank you for that. Yeah,
You're welcome. I can't wait to see what you do with that money.
me too.
you know
It's
because
cool.
what will happen is big opportunities will start matching you, because it's not even about what you'll be at the 500. It's
Hmm.
about the different version of you'll be when you're at 80,000 a month.
Mm.
That will be a different version of you. You'll be speaking in a different way. You'll be carrying yourself in a different way. You'll be talking. You'll have different opportunities that come into your life, and those opportunities are what will cause you to figure out to where those. That's how you'll get the answers to get from 80 to 125, to get from 125 to 200. People think they need to have all the answers to get to the 500. You don't. You really just need to have the
Mhm.
answers to get like above where you are now, and then the universe is going to show you something that is going to give you that lightning bolt again. Like I never eat fast food. It's like I never pulled through a drive-through, and I was in a weird city, and I was just like, this is the only choice there is, right? So I pulled through a drive-through, and there was this woman who was like, she was very like happy on the when she asked for the order, right? And then I got there, and she opened the window, and she was just alive with
Mm.
happiness, energy, and smile. And it was like I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe, like, she was almost like she reminded me of Amma, like
Mm.
Amma, the hugger, the Indian woman who
Oh, right, right.
she reminded me of her. And it hit me in that moment. I was like, okay, I have just increased my responsibility as far as money, because I want to be able to pull back through this drive-through line and say to her, quit your job right now,
Mm.
go out there, and whatever you're doing right here, I just want you to do this all day long. I want you to walk through stores, go wherever you want to go, because she's a walking light, and
Mm.
she's working at a drive-through. She's a walking light. And I want to be able to have a role and have a contribution to people like that. And that's what I needed. Now that's not what somebody else would need. Somebody else, they help kids or they help, different things, but the world's giving us these beams of light. Are we seeing them? And are we willing to step into the responsibility of it? Because the only thing that you have to do when you step into the responsibility of it is live the new version, which then naturally causes the old version to die. Neville Goddard says we can't have two masters.
Mm.
When you let one live, the other one dies.
Your story about the woman in the drive-thru made me tear up. I don't know if you could tell, but I think it's one of the greatest tragedies and greatest opportunities of this place that we chose to arrive to on Earth and this dimension, this timeline, is that there are those folks. Like I have a story of, I can't remember if I've told it on my podcast yet, but there was this big teddy bear of a man named Sean, and I was just in shambles because I had had just a very hard night. I was still in my corporate job, and he was doing omelets at the hotel that I was staying at. He was like doing my eggs, and Sean saw me. And again, I had just like, I'd gotten a few hours of sleep. I'd thrown some makeup on. I felt like just such a different version of myself. And I came up and he noticed my smile and he was like, your smile, like you just kind of like light up the room or something like that. And I started sobbing because I didn't feel like the light, right? And and he was like, the fact that you are in the state that you're in, like that must tell you how easy it is for you to embody the light. And as I think about Sean, who I'm not even sure existed, if I'm honest, there's a
Yeah.
part of me that's like, was he just
Yeah.
like a guardian angel that was like popped into human form and popped out? But the responsibility of Sean, you are meant to be on platforms. Like you are meant to be seeing people and helping them see their light and helping them see themselves, which is why it's important for me to own the fact that a big part of what I am meant to do is attract wealth so that we can be these conduits for people who just are still figuring it out of
Mhm.
how to, yeah, how to, but the fact that these folks are attracting and magnetizing us is
Mhm.
such a testament to their light also, right? And I
Yes.
just want to I just want to pour into them. That's all I want to do. That's all I want to pour into them financially, and I also want to mentor them to be the spiritual whatever who they're meant to be in this world and whatever that looks like. It's so beautiful.
It is. And thank you for sharing that story because, you have told the story of, you're building into your responsibility, even just telling that story and sharing that.
Mm.
That's
Oh
great.
my gosh. I'm so grateful for you, Elizabeth. I feel like I could talk to you for another another hour, but we are getting close to calling this podcast episode, calling an ending to it. So I was there anything else on your heart that you wanted to share with the folks before I ask the last couple of closing questions?
Let's see. Definitely, when we talk about responsibility, because that's been a dominant theme here, and so let's just say one more thing about that is that
Mm.
don't make the assumption that more responsibility is going to come with more work or more figuring it out or more time.
Mm.
It may in the beginning, but because of your intention and the pureness of what you are doing, what will happen is you will receive guidance on the most effortless path.
Mm.
So don't not do it because of that. And don't wait and say, I'll do this after I have money, or I'll do this after I the kids go to school or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like there is no such thing as time. You're
Yeah.
either accepting responsibility or you're not.
Mm. And I'm hearing you know how to do this. I'm hearing for those same folks who are wrestling with like the energy of responsibility, you have navigated so many lives where you've learned how to navigate and be a steward of like the responsible path in an easeful, self-loving, purposeful way that didn't sacrifice any of the things that you want in your life or sacrifice the energies of what you're attracting. I think we often forget that we know how to do this. We know how to do this. And when we can get past those stories of our childhood or the things that are keeping us stuck and fearing responsibility and fearing money and all of that, once we can reckon with those and integrate those pieces, then we can access like the wisdom of our abundant souls, which goes so much deeper than what we're experiencing here. So, it's so beautiful, Elizabeth. I love your medicine. Your medicine is so potent. Thank you for just like sharing yourself with us.
Thank you. This has really, really been amazing. And I know that the listeners here who are connected to you are absolutely incredible. And I can't wait until the people who are listening to this are no longer even talking about money because they have stepped into the responsibility to be wealthy. And then they're having conversations about how many ocean liners are they going to send out to clean the ocean?
Mm.
Uh, how many schools are they going to build? Because that's where you really want to be. This is just a step. This is just a step. That's why don't put this off.
No, it has to be now. I'm hearing it must be now. We all just experienced like a massive timeline jump, like all of us around the Lionsgate time frame. Those of us who are higher consciousness, who are saying yes to our paths, we all experience this timeline jump. We are all in brand new vessels. And like now is the time to say yes to being abundant stewards of wealth because that's what's required in our world, period. So
Yes,
thank you.
yes.
So the question that I always ask everybody at the end is, what is your bumper sticker? Like, what is the one tiny nugget of wisdom that you would put everywhere if you could?
It is it's a spiritual mantra, and it is show up needing nothing, receive all.
Oh, that's so perfect for you. That is
Mhm.
such a perfect bumper sticker. Let's produce that. Let's do it. Um, and then how can everyone find you? Where are you? What's your social, your website? Give us the deets, and this will also be in the show notes.
I would say Instagram. So it's just my first and last name, Elizabeth Ralph. So just all one word. The Spiritual Investor Podcast. We go pretty deep
Mhm.
there on, all of the stuff that we've talked about here. And the spiritualinvestor.com is where you can find out about just, the things that we offer. And there's something for, I say there's something for everyone. There's free to low cost, there's to mid-range, there's then my high-end mastermind, which we're getting ready to open again. So
Which I
just,
might just need to sign up for. I think
yes,
it's
you
time.
do.
It's time.
That's a
Uh,
powerful container. It's 9 weeks of I work with you for 9 weeks, and it's 2 hours a week. It's a workshop type of environment, and we get it done. Believe me, you have a very intelligent investment portfolio by the end of that, and all of your money stuff is cleaned up, and it kind of sets people. I think it draws a line in the sand. Even
mhm,
just the program itself. It's like if you decide you're ready for it, then I can help you do it, right? But it's just like if you don't step into the responsibility that we talked about here today, then you're not ready. And if you're not ready, then that's okay too, but just be real with yourself. But if you
mhm,
are ready, then you're not choosing the comfortable route.
mm. It's so beautiful. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Thank you for sharing of yourself today. And hopefully we can get you back on at some point, but really, really appreciate you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you all so much for being here for this episode today. Again, it was a vulnerable one for me, but not one that I would change for anything. I hope that you received some medicine in watching me walk through this process. And I am so sure that so many of you are going to work with Elizabeth, because this is just such a beautiful offering that she is giving to the world and helping us understand our ability to have a relationship with money that feels nourishing, that's more easeful, that's more energetically neutral. I mean, we all are worthy. We're so deserving of that. And I cannot wait for you to experience your own shifts in this way. If you want to connect with Elizabeth, you can find all of her information in the show notes. If you'd like to connect with me, you can find my information in the show notes as well. But for now, be still, my friends, and live into your impact. So grateful you're here, and I will talk to you soon.